If you have a startup, then the individuals, they start with their own money, they start with angel investors, eventually they go on to venture capital funds, right? And at some point you need to, especially when you're scaling up, expand the amount of capital you have. That's the first reason that companies go public. The second reason companies go public is pressure from those early investors. And the easiest way to do that is to sell those shares. There has been a development in the world of finance. IPOs fell from roughly 600 to 100 per year. Was the economy shrinking? No. It was because it was becoming easier and easier for companies to raise capital privately. Companies still have to provide liquidity to those initial investors, and that gave rise to the direct listing. But in the beginning, all you were doing was getting listed so those initial early shareholders could sell their shares. Because there was no underwriter, it was cheaper to raise the capital. That's number one. Number two, in an IPO, there's usually what we call a lockup period, where the shares of the owners that exist are locked up for 90 to 180 days post-IPO. So in a direct listing, you can be cheaper and you can be faster. So you see this increase in the number of companies that are taking advantage of this. Legal scholarship primarily takes on a normative stance. When I first heard about this, I remember thinking, underwriters serve a very important role in our capital markets. And if you're going to remove them from the equation, there's real dangers there. Traditionally, in an IPO, you have the company, the issuer of the shares. The underwriter takes those shares and gives them a markup, and sells them to the public. In so doing, they're putting their reputation on the line. So they want a company that is going to go out there, that's going to get listed, there's going to be a pop, the shares are going to go up, and everyone's going to be really impressed. They do a ton of due diligence. So now they've agreed to do the underwriting, they've filed a preliminary registration statement. That registration statement, to the extent there is anything wrong in it, any what we would call a material misstatement of fact, will subject the issuer to liability and will subject the underwriter to liability. And this can weed out companies as well. Without the underwriter to do that to fill that gatekeeping role, you're putting investors at risk. Now, primary direct listings, which allow shareholders to sell and the company to raise capital, originally, those did not require underwriters. At the end of 2022, the New York Stock Exchange said, you know what, we think it probably is a good idea to have underwriters here to serve a gatekeeping role. The SEC said, we agree, and the rules were changed. The rules were changed accordingly. There is another danger. Section 11 of the Securities Act says that if there is a misstatement within the registration statements, then anyone who purchased such shares can bring a lawsuit to recover damages against the issuer itself, that's the company, the underwriter, the accountants, and other experts. Direct listings don't have lockup periods. You are in a situation where if a company is going to directly list their company, you don't know if you're buying shares that were registered pursuant to that, under that registration statement, or shares that are being sold by some insider that's now taking advantage of the exit opportunity. And that exact issue arose in a case called Pirani versus Slack out of California. And the Ninth Circuit did something extremely interesting. They just threw out the precedent. They said, yeah, we understand that the Second Circuit has said you've got to be able to trace it back to the registration statement. We're not really going to require that anymore. And in December 2022, the Supreme Court agreed to hear the case. Working on this has been an honor for me because I've seen my work cited in amicus briefs that are going to the Ninth Circuit, that are going to the Supreme Court. So it's, even in my own small way, to have a voice in the development of the law in this important area has been just such an honor.